Good morning. My name is Lynn. I live in Texas. I'm a United States Army veteran. I discharged as a drill sergeant from the United States Army. I have 3 adult children, 3 grandchildren, and currently I'm studying political science and constitutional law. And lately, as we all know, we're watching the debacle unfold in the White House in our country, and my concerns, and I think everybody's concern, is what is going to happen with Trump. My opinion is that he already has created a socialist state. He does not recognize any other branch of the government. He is tearing the country apart, building a wall, and I don't really think he's joking about Texas, Colorado, etc., etc. I believe that is to separate, divide the country for whatever purpose he's planning, which I don't believe it's going to be anything good. I believe he wants to be impeached. Being impeached helps his platform and lift himself up and create more outrage, chaos among his devout cult-like supporters. There was an article by Brad Pascali that he has a group of about 2 million people to protect the supporters and Trump at these rallies. But my concern is those other groups, all these hate groups against anybody of color, anybody whose belief is different. Those to me are extremists. And if you ever learned anything in history, propaganda, well, they're using it, and they are actually using old Russian propaganda, and more importantly, I think, is the Germans' playbook on propaganda. Goebbels was the master of it. The Nazis basically started off using Hitler because he was so charismatic. So much so that in that propaganda, he was able to get the Germans, all worked up. They followed him blindly after some point. He became a prophet to the German people, so to speak. And he was able to rise to power the way he did when the stock market in 1929 crashed. He used that, against the Americans in the world, blaming the Americans for the money issues. And so that was his foothold into achieving, ultimately, becoming a dictator, control over a country, invading other countries, committing mass atrocities. I believe our country is going to head that direction. Now, if you're no use, I believe you're going to be on a work farm, and I don't think I'm the only person who has that concern. It's hard. It's hard to watch it because I get very worked up, very passionate. I believe everybody has a right to their freedoms, their beliefs, worship who you want. At the end of the day, we're created in the image of God, and I don't mean that in a physical sense. I think that is the soul, spirit. Not one person is not better than anybody else, and nobody has a right whatsoever to take those freedoms, liberties from anybody. And in order to head everything off, because I don't believe Trump is going to actually leave the White House willingly. I don't think he was kidding about a civil war. I don't believe he was kidding about crashing the stock market. Kissinger essentially said, he who controls the energy, the food supply, the money, controls the world. And I believe this has been a work in progress. probably for a good long time. And hypothetically speaking, if somebody has millions of these bitcoins, and currently they're at $16,000 a bitcoin, if you take that with all these other issues, they can predict the market, get insider trading. Let's say hypothetically that Bitcoin goes to $50,000 and somebody has 2 million Bitcoins. That's $50 trillion. You know, but if it's a massive amount, that number increases exponentially. If he's able to get the Feds to lower the interest rate to zero, it will destabilize the United States dollar. The world's monies are based off of our currency. Everybody follows our currency for their dollars. If he ruins our economy, he ruins the world's economy. And there was, back in 1929, there was some research, and some people believe that politicians help crash the stock market. In doing so, they come in, they save the people. They're lifted up, because people came to rely on the government. And I believe that's happening now. I can't prove it. It's just after all this research and watching everything going on, I no longer think it's a conspiracy theory. I believe this is our reality. Which is pretty sad when you stop and think about it. The Democrats that are going forward with this impeachment process, they are duty bound by their oath. Unfortunately, majority of the Republicans don't feel the same way. I think they made a deal with the devil or whatever the case is. I can't prove it. Time will tell. But we can't turn our back on our country. This is where we live. We protect everybody who can't protect themselves. That is our role in the world. And Trump, again, I do not call him the President of the United States because I don't believe he is the president. I think he's corrupt. I think he's evil. He's in there, no good. He's running it like a business. But the Democrats have a difficult task. Enormous, almost impossible, because they're being block stymied. Trump represents nobody in that party. He insults them, and he is on the defensive. He is making the Democrats react. And they are doing a good job not getting combative with him. But they need to be on the offense instead of the defense and being spread out, which is the point of what Trump is doing. If he has them spread out so far, they cannot see what he's doing up close. Keeping the focus off him and the focus on everything else going on. I believe your experts, your researchers can confirm that. I don't think everything should be made public step by step until they have definitive proof, answers, things like that, because everybody's getting more upset. Every time Trump tweets anything, he gets a reaction, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It feeds his ego, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. It inflates him, puffs him up. If you say anything negative, there's an attack by his supporters pretty quickly, and a lot of it's probably bots. We know that, we understand it, but we still fall into the trap. If we ignore his negative propaganda, because that's what it is, it's all propaganda, take away his platform, you take away the attacks. So I wrote an article. I did post it yesterday, but I wrote it. But doing a video I think is easier, I guess. I don't like doing videos at all because I don't think my voice sounds all that great. Uh, anyway, but this is what it is. And I think if each individual does their share, we can unite as a whole. But we have to start as an individual. So this is what I call it. What is the appeal of being an extremist? Okay, if the extremist group is utilizing negative propaganda, the concept is to draw negative actions, reactions, comments, judgment, criticisms from those outside the extremist group. By doing so, it reinforces the group's cause, proving that their cause is a just cause. The reasons these groups exist is to give a person a purpose. The more they can get people to be negative, they believe they found their purpose in life. Once an extremist has found their purpose, they believe that they are a greater cause bigger. They're in a greater cause bigger than themselves. Sorry about that. The whole key of propaganda, the purpose is to bring people together that feel like they are lost, disenchanted with society, or that they don't fit in with what society wanted them to be. That's what gives propaganda its strength. The more that the mainstream reacts to the negative propaganda, the worse it becomes. So, at that point, divisions are created. These are going to be divisions of belief, which is the main core element of every person's personality. The more that the extremist groups become public, the greater the chance of those that are unsure will join the negative propaganda campaign. The purpose of drawing out the negative responses is to draw out additional negative feelings about the situation. This is all on purpose, intentional. A reason for it. Primary reason is the more negativity is generated from the public, the more it reinforces their causes. The more that people fight back against the negative propaganda, the more it grows for the extremists. So when we are reacting to the negativity from these extremists, we are reinforcing their reason to be negative. The core. Every person has a greater number of negative core elements versus the positive core elements. That is why it is easier for each person to be negative than to be positive in life. This is an overview of why it's getting worse. It is easier to be negative in life. Negativity drags us down. The power of positive thinking is more rewarding at the end of the day. We need to condition ourselves to positive thinking. The reason it happens that a negative or positive personality dominates a person is solely based on life experience. How do we fight it? How do you fight the damage of a person that is physically abused? Reconditioning, counseling, a very long process. Time is of the essence. For example, understanding personality. These people see Trump as a savior. They are attaching themselves to him. These are individuals with destroyed or weak in themselves. So they have to attach themselves to what Trump represents. So recondition them. Example, this is very brief in my story about me, just a little bit. Okay, growing up, I had 9 brothers and sisters, 4 of which have already passed away from drug use, alcohol abuse, things like that. One of them, massive heart attack. He was a good guy. Okay, both of my parents were very abusive, alcoholics. We were beaten, told repeatedly we were not good enough, etc., etc. As we got older, it became much worse. My father had been abusing my sister for years. She finally said something to my older brother. He called the police. They came. My father was arrested. Yeah, he got beat up. Not much really happened to him when it went to court. I think he had like a year probation, if that. It was pretty bad. Anyway, all my siblings started drinking, doing drugs. There were 10 of us. One of my brothers became so unstable. He was physically violent to most around him. He became very racist, hated everybody. I think he even hated himself. He died a few years back. Anyway, he caved to the pressure from extreme racist groups. I stopped talking to him up until December 2010 when one of my younger sisters passed away. And then he died as well shortly afterwards. I hung out with people growing up that did drugs. Some were violent. They were not violent. They did do drugs, however. And I never cared for it. I didn't understand the concept of it, but I did try it, and yeah, I didn't like it. And I finally decided, before I turned 18, I wanted to join the military. I felt like I had to get out of there or I'd become just like my mother, and I didn't want to. I didn't feel like felt like I had to escape, so I quit high school. I joined the military. I got my GED. I had several pretty bad experiences in the Army, but overall I got a lot more from it that was positive than negative. And I liked and loved what the military stood for. It was for the greater good. I felt part of something bigger and better than me. So it was extreme. It's an extremist group, but for me it was a positive. So but that's pretty much the gist of it. I joined the military because I wanted to be some part of something better, something good. And I believe that exists for everybody. And I have to believe that because the alternative is, I guess, bad. I always felt the need to, or compelled to help people. And in any way I could, whether it's small, big, I just feel the need to do that. And so today I feel the need to try this. And hopefully it will go somewhere. I'm hoping with the help of everybody we can reach more people and help them to understand what propaganda is and what's going on and what it's doing to our country. And I know to the core of my soul that if we don't help, don't stand up, do not get involved in a peaceful way without violence, not only will we lose our country, our freedom, we will lose ourselves. Okay, society's views on an extremist group. Extremist groups of individuals who have an extremely narrow view of an idea or belief. With that said, a great number of people consider every military branch of service to be an extremist group, whereas the primary focus of military branches is to serve and protect those who cannot protect themselves. Every extremist group has a primary goal. When that goal is fully understood, it is much easier to recondition the group. If you know the group's primary goal and purpose, you can find the answers to redirect the outcome of that group's goal. It's the complexity of the negative and positive propaganda that creates the challenge. The old adage, you cut the head off the snake, the problem is gone. But what if that snake was pregnant, laid eggs? The problem is still there. So even if Trump is successfully impeached and removed, where are the eggs? Trump planted so many eggs in these groups that has become so big. The cause has become bigger than him. Trump is now just a tool. And more, I think he's the tool of Putin. I think we can all tell that. So, my solution to counteract the negative movement, Trumpism, as I've seen online, Trump's rallies, notice the energy rises quickly when there are protesters trying to disrupt his rally. The protesters are adding fuel to the fire. So if there were no protesters making the noise, there is no additional negativity to fuel Trump's followers. So there are steps that we can take. Number one, don't participate in protesting at Trump's rallies or other Republican rallies. In other words, you are going to turn protesters into spectators and witnesses, done in silence. Basically, you still want to witnesses to witness, record the rallies, not to protest against it. Just be silent, passive witnesses to the events. Also, the same thing applies to the tweets online. Don't respond to those tweets negatively, or don't respond at all would be easier. Less visibility for Trump, less people will see it, because any publicity, any propaganda works in his favor. Because if you respond negatively to anything he says or anybody on his staff, supporters, it gets tweeted and probably millions of people are seeing this. Anyway, number two, did you ever witness a bully pick on anybody? They always bully with an audience. This encourages the bully. It lifts them up. The bully wants to impress people, to show he is more powerful and that he can get away with anything. How to defuse a bully? 1. Take the victim out of the equation. Example, perception, victim. Trump versus corruption. Trump chose corruption as his victim. Whatever corruption Trump selects, you counter it with factual evidence that the corruption does not exist. Make them show you their facts. If you got factual information, post it. Make them back up their claims. Counter corruption claim by Trump or others with factual corruption that Trump and the others are involved with. Basically, you are neutralizing his claims or their claims, causing him and them to be on the defense. This is the perceived victim. B. 2. Physical victim. Example, picking on the Democrats. So what Trump has done is label the Democrats as the enemy, or anybody against him as the enemy, thus fighting them. So in a sense, Trump is claiming the Democrats are the problem and that he is the solution. Hitler's playbook. This is our countermeasure. Action. Explanation. Those Republicans and Democrats alike should not stoop to Trump's and associates' level in response to his accusations by responding with opinions. Counteract all accusations with only facts. 3. Diversion victim. The sole purpose of a diversion victim is to take the focus off Trump and associates. Counteraction, countermeasure to this would be to redirect the diversion back to the actual facts surrounding the diversion. A secondary countermeasure would be to direct the diversion to Trump and his associates. 4. The imagined victim. This typically will be completely off-topic subject, a completely off-topic subject that has a perceived threat to Trump and associates. Countermeasure action to require Trump and associates to provide factual documentation of the threat. The Democrats are not on the defensive. They need to make Trump and the Republicans support their statements factually, both publicly and privately. Every one of the above elements are meant to see Trump, to see the true Trump, not the Trump that he wants everybody to see. So, if we make them give facts, example, these hearings going on, they come out and say, well, we're not allowed to ask questions. Well, Schiff needs to say exactly what questions. We'd be happy to. Make them give specifics. And I have no idea if it's going to work, but I know that if we don't try, we will not have a democracy, I think. It's scary. I've never thought I'd live to see this day. We were fighting for our very freedom and Constitution again. And everybody else is. Thank you, and spread the word. Thanks.